Welcome back to Language Arts class, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at foreshadowing. Now, this is our first section or first look at our next genre that we're going to be tackling in Language Arts class, which will be our urban legends section. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. Start with the definition of foreshadowing, which is foreshadowing is a literary device in which a writer gives an advance hint of what is to come later in the story. Foreshadowing often appears at the beginning of a story or a chapter and helps the reader develop expectations about the coming events in a story. There are various ways to create foreshadowing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But foreshadowing are those hints that the author gives you about what's going to happen later on in the story. For instance, this is the gun that the protagonist finds at the beginning of the story that you know is going to come into play later on. This is, if you're watching a scary movie, this is when all the lights go off in the house and you know something bad is about to happen. But just your hints that the author gives you, letting you know what's going to happen later on in the story. All right, why is foreshadowing important? So foreshadowing is useful for creating suspense, a feeling of unease, a sense of curiosity, or a mark that things may not be as they seem. So particularly for us, suspense is going to be the main thing that foreshadowing is going to be doing, because in our urban legends and scary stories that we're reading, foreshadowing is really creating the suspense that's driving the story. And we'll point out lots and lots of examples of those as we get into our readings later on in the week and month. Next up, foreshadowing keeps the reader guessing and encourages the reader to keep turning the page. Foreshadowing allows readers to guess. Those hints that the author is giving can be implemented in a variety of ways. So readers like to guess how it's going to happen, how it's going to come out in the end. And that sort of guessing leads to the reader wanting to keep turning the page to see if they're right, to see if that gun really will be used in the way that they think it will, to find out what happens after the lights go off in the house. So foreshadowing, very important for those types of things. Okay, next up, let's get into some examples. All right, here we go. Examples of foreshadowing. First example, a pipe is going to burst, but before it does, the author writes a scene where the family notices a small dark spot on the ceiling, but ignores it. The small dark spot there being the foreshadowing of what's going to happen later. Example 2, a character in a story comments on the weather and says, "I think a storm is coming." This can signify a physical storm or a metaphorical storm that is coming in the story. So maybe an actual storm, or maybe just something bad that's about to happen, right? A sort of metaphorical storm. And then finally, example 3, in the fairy tale, The Little Red Riding Hood, the mother is concerned for her safety, and that foreshadows the appearance of the big bad wolf. The mother specifically says, "Don't talk to anyone else, go straight there. It's dangerous outside." And of course, we know that Little Red Riding Hood is going to talk to people and get into some trouble based on that foreshadowing. All right. I do have a link down here that'll give you guys some more examples of foreshadowing that I will also post in your Google Classroom so that you can have access to it. But that's all for today.